Have you ever heard of somebody saying the quiet part out loud, the part that you're not supposed to tell everybody, whether it's about a movie or behind the scenes info or a book or just whatever the situation is? Have you ever heard that phrase before? Well, Coach Prime absolutely just did that. And it's something that I don't think other coaches in college football like to hear or wanted to hear at all. I'll get into it in just a moment. Now, here's what happened. Recently, Coach Prime was teaching a class on a campus at Colorado. It was the most recent WellOff media video. You're probably very familiar with it. First of all, it's really good for him to get out and be seen there by coaches, by other students, be accessible to them. Also good for him to share with those kids. He talks all the time about wanting to impact kids as his true life's work, not necessarily being a college football coach. And so I think it's good that he's doing that and obviously walking the walk, not just talking the talk. But there was a moment in his talk with them, and it was the title of the video. Again, you've probably already seen it, and you probably already know what I'm going to talk about, but I do want to dive into it and what I really do believe that Coach Prime was saying and meant by it. And I fully agree with him on this. But here's what Coach Prime said. He said, NIL is not really what you think it is. All these kids are not getting NIL. They're getting collectives. Collectives, it was like if we took up an offering and we passed the bucket around like we were in church. It's called a collection plate, and you put your collective in. And then we say we got 10 players up here. Let's divide that. This player here gets 10, and this player gets 20, and that's a collective. Now, first of all, Coach Prime is spot on here, and I'll talk more about and go into more of his quote here in just a moment. But the fact that he used a church offering plate, which is exactly what NIL collectives are, to represent this shows a couple of things. One, his humor. We talk about that all the time. He is hilarious. Number two, it shows his faith. What is he relaying it to? Well, he's relaying it to the church and Christianity and his relationship with Christ. It's hilarious. It's not hilarious, but great that he's doing that. It kind of shows that that's where his mind goes back to. He thinks about it in terms of the things that are most important to him. His faith, his humor, his family. And I love the representation. I love the way that he speaks, almost in using examples and relating it to the kids, to situations that they're familiar with. He says NIL is name, image, and likeness. And he says, since I've got time today, I want you to tell me how many players, college football, that you've seen on commercials. A few names are mentioned: Travis, Shiloh, Shador, Kalen Clark, Caleb Williams. But everyone's talking about NIL, he says. This ain't NIL. All these college athletes, and you've named 5 people. He said, that's not NIL. That's what it's supposed to be, but it's collectives. And that's where it went wrong. I wish it was NIL so that kids could earn it, because you've got to ball to earn it. You got to ball for a CEO to invest in you. He went on to talk about that a little bit and what that would mean and why CEOs aren't doing that now. And you can go check out the clip. I'll put it in the description if you want later. But there's a lot to unpack here. But let's talk about it. Number one, I fully support collectives being in place. We have urged some of you more wealthy viewers and listeners to go and give to Colorado. We have encouraged other fan bases of other schools. I've got friends that cheer for other schools, and I tell them, like, man, if you want to be good, you need to be supporting this. So I support collectives being in place. And I also disagree with them at the same time, fundamentally, just like Coach Prime does. Coach Prime's not telling you to not give to the Boulder Collective. Coach Prime's not telling you to not give to the Colorado Collective. He's telling you he's got a problem with them in general. Why does that sound misleading? Does that sound like maybe a double standard? Does that sound like he's being speaking out of both sides of his mouth? No, I don't think so. I think he's got a fundamental problem, just like I do, with this being our system right now, but also realizing that this is our system right now. There are some people who don't believe we should pay taxes, yet they send in their tax forms every year because they don't want to go to jail. You can disagree with something and still follow the rules, follow the process. Right now, collectives are the best thing that we currently have going to pay players. Well, why is that? Why do we have collectives? Well, it's because the NCAA is greedy at the end of the day. It's because these universities, for the most part, don't want to pay these players. It's because the conferences don't want to revenue share with the kids, because then it's less money for them. So we have the next best thing that we could come up with. We have collectives. where we say we'll collectively pool our money as each fan base, and whoever has the most money gets the shiniest new toys. The haves stay haves, and the have-nots stay have-nots. That's what NIL is. It's an arms race, just like it's always been. There's always been money under the table going to recruits. There's always been money going to these kids, but now it's above board. Now it's legal because the NCAA got shot down. They never wanted NIL to be in place because they knew that if NIL got in place, then that would be another stepping stone to start to treat the kids as employees, start to treat the athletes as employees, and eventually get them paid regularly. It's all about recruiting. It's all about getting the best talent in. And so that's why we have collectives. That's why they exist right now. They are a mandatory force because some schools have enough money and some alumni bases and donor bases have enough money to where they can fund a football operation and it not be any sweat off their back at all. And then others have to scrape and dig in the couch cushions and look for money as best as they can. But other coaches don't want what Coach Prime talked about. Other coaches don't want true NIL. They don't like it. They don't like the idea of it. They love the collective model. Why? Because they know they can just go out and buy all the best players, and that's good enough. Have you ever seen Alabama players or UGA players or Ohio State guys in commercials? No, they weren't the ones that they mentioned in that video. Who have you seen? The absolute best of the best, the highest and the brightest, and the ones that will bring a company a return on investment. Well, who would do that? I'll tell you who would do it. Kids and athletes that are attached to Coach Prime would do it. Kids and athletes like Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and Shiloh and Cormani and others that are attached to Coach Prime and his sphere of influence would absolutely do it. Kids that play for a program that allows them to put their handles on the back of their jerseys so that they can monetize their own name, image, and likeness. You see, Colorado is forward thinking. You think WellOff Media exists just for Coach Prime's sole benefit? No, it's helping these players as well. It's helping these kids get notoriety. You've seen more on Jordan Seaton on the WellOff channel than you've seen on any other five-star recruit that's come out because other programs don't do what Colorado does. Other programs don't put their players out front like Coach Prime has been innovative to do. If true NIL existed, it would put Colorado so much higher than every other program in the country because actual businesses, actual legitimate businesses know that if they invested in players like Shedeur and Travis and others, their return on that would be massive. And Coach Prime knows this. Other coaches would be scared to death of what Coach Prime could do with true NIL, and he knows this. He absolutely understands and is aware of this, and that's why he doesn't like the collective model. The collective model is just whoever has the most money has the shiniest and newest and brightest toys. They get the best recruits. They get the pick of the litter. Coach Prime knows that if it really came down to players' name, image, and likeness, he could elevate them so much more than any other coach in college football. You look at the coaches that have won titles that are still coaching current day college football. Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney, Mac Brown. You think any of those coaches are elevating their players' name, image, and likeness status? Kirby certainly does a great job of developing kids and has the biggest thing going in college football right now with Georgia. I get it. But he's not elevating their NIL. Dabo's certainly not elevating their NIL. Mac Brown is certainly not elevating kids' NIL. No one would do it quite like Coach Prime would, and that's why other coaches don't want true NIL. Other coaches don't want you to capitalize on how valuable you are to a brand, your name, image, and likeness, because Coach Prime's kids would blow it out of the water. It wouldn't be close. It wouldn't be competitive. He would sign all the top kids every year. Now, what does this all boil down to? If you're a Colorado fan and you want them to compete, I don't love this system right now. I don't think Coach Prime loves this system. But I think Coach Prime and I would and will tell you should still be given to Colorado's collective because we need it and they need it. If you're a fan of another team and you want to see your team do well, I don't love the system, but you should be given to your team's collective. That's as simple as I can tell you. Will things change? Will things change with the NCAA? We've already seen news about a Big Two, the Big Ten and the SEC coming out and forming an advisory board to basically start to end the NCAA. Will that help? Possibly. Will you eventually get to a point where the NCAA isn't so greedy and the players do end up getting paid and you have a collective bargaining agreement, just like the NFL, a mini NFL, and that takes away some of this collective business? I'm not sure. I covered it on our national channel. If you haven't checked that channel out, I'd love for you to go do it. You can click the video on the screen right now to go watch it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments on all of this. Again, big shout out to WellOff Media. That was a great clip that they pulled from the Coach Prime teaching at Colorado University. Thank you guys, as always, for watching the Prime Time for college football.